As you know, he is running for governor of California. Please welcome back to the program, Steve Hilton.
Larry, fantastic to be with you. And as we were just discussing, I'm really serious about it. I'm wearing a shirt with the collar. How about that?
Although there still isn't a tie, my friend. So,
yeah, you're not going to get that.
Little steps. You know, Steve, you and I have talked a lot about running for governor, and I appreciate the fact that you've asked me questions about it. One of the things that fascinated me when I was running, obviously you have to raise a lot of money. So you meet with a lot of very wealthy people. And I was just struck by the different ways people make money. This guy over here had started out with one gas station. He ended up with several gas stations. This guy over here used the things that people see in a urinal and built a whole bunch of different products having to do with bathrooms. This one made something that you can't even see. It goes into seats on airplanes. And they all have, one guy rented an airplane, then decided that he would go into the business of renting airplanes and started a whole business doing that. So many different ways in America and in California where you can make money if you're willing to work hard, be creative, particularly if you didn't have all the rules and regulations and taxes that thwart hardworking would-be entrepreneurs.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. It's one of the great joys and privileges of doing this, and I've got a couple like that. Almost my favorite story was in Bakersfield. There's an amazing business there. Basically, this company that invented the idea of baby carrots. So they had this incredible facility creating baby carrots, shaving baby carrots out of bigger carrots. And then there's some ranchers who I met who'd used the shavings from the baby carrots to create a whole line of beef that's particularly organic, whatever. It's just an amazing thing to see the range of businesses in every sector. I love it. I totally love it. And the real point, exactly as you say, is that imagine where we could be if we didn't have this nonsense, because it's getting worse and worse every year. The bureaucracy, the nanny state, bloated bureaucracy in Sacramento, every year they're passing 1,000 bills, every single one of them pretty much adding to the burden of regulation and the cost. Then you have the litigation. That's a huge thing that doesn't get talked about enough, which is one of the main things that are driving businesses crazy, small, medium, large businesses, is all these lawsuits, whether that's, like personal injury ones or these environmental lawsuits usually filed by the unions to get deals that they want to extract. The burden of all of that is crushing. And yet somehow these great entrepreneurs are still pushing through. I really imagine if we can liberate them from all of that. That's why I'm running.
Well, which brings us to your lawsuit against Gavin Newsom. Tell us about that, Steve.
Yes. So look, we've got to stop this, Larry, this rigging of the elections, this attempt to steal even more Republican House seats than they already have. They've already rigged the maps in California. People talk about us having a citizens independent districting thing. Yeah, that was totally hijacked by Gavin Newsom and the Democrats. So the maps are already heavily rigged. Now we have this new, absolutely outrageous attack on the fairness of our elections. He thinks he's gotten away with it. Republicans in Sacramento have already filed 2 lawsuits in state court, and they've been thrown out straight away. So I filed a suit yesterday in federal court, and it's a different argument. It's not about the process and whether they should have done things differently. It's about the fundamental legal principle that's in the US Constitution and the California Constitution, the Equal Protection Clause. Because over the years, that has been interpreted, amongst other things, as meaning, very simply, one person, one vote. And that means each vote should have equal value. And that, in turn, has been interpreted by the courts to require that electoral districts have roughly equal population. Now, they've just drawn these maps on the back of an envelope in about 5 minutes to benefit their own electoral prospects, the Democrats. They don't know what's happened to our population. Since the last census, we've had millions of people leave California fleeing because of the high taxes and all the other nonsense. We've had whole neighborhoods in LA burned to the ground. In the pandemic, people leaving the cities. So massive population changes. They can't take that into account because they don't know anything about it. And so they cannot possibly deliver that guarantee of equal protection through equal population for the districts. That's the basis of our argument. Right. We filed it in federal court yesterday. We'll see what happens, but I think we've got a shot of stopping this, which we have to do, because otherwise we're going to be spending $250 million of our money on what is basically a corrupt contribution to Gavin Newsom's presidential campaign.
Now, the side that wants to shrink the number of Republican seats is going to spend a massive amount of money. But right now, the polls seem to suggest that it's not going to pass. Gavin Newsom has to go to the voters to get this approved. And right now, anyway, it does not look like the Californians are supporting it. But of course, he's going to spend a lot of money and try to get public opinion to change.
Yes, and we cannot be complacent, Larry, because they're not going to talk about the actual merits of the case, because there are no merits to their case. It's going to be 100% Trump, 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 Trump all the way. And in California, I'm sad to say, with people who aren't paying attention, as you and I are, and our audience are, to what's going on, they may be able to pull the wool over voters' eyes and say this is all about Trump and get it through that way. That's why I'm trying to, what did the president teach us? Fight, fight, fight. We've got to fight to even stop it getting to the point where we have this initiative on the ballot. So that's why I filed this lawsuit. Of course, if we don't succeed and it remains on the ballot, then we have to do our best to win. But I wouldn't be complacent at all. Of course, they've got no real argument. That's why it's going to be all about Trump.
Steve, we have about 90 seconds left. How do you feel the California media have been treating you?
So I think right now it's very interesting. I was at a Politico conference last week where they had all the candidates on the Democratic side and myself. And it was just very palpable, the sense that they really are part, the media, of this, the corrupt ruling elite in California, where they just assume you're going to have one party rule forever. It's only the Democrats who matter. Who cares what these Republicans think? We may humor them by inviting them to a few things, but they don't really believe that anything's going to change. And so I think they're in for a real shock next year, because while it's not going to be easy, I'm very, very convinced that we can do this. People are getting, the level of pain and suffering for working class people in California and families, the cost of everything, the hassle. I think it's got to a point where people are sick of it, and they really do want change. And if we are out there and with a strong, well-funded, high-energy campaign with a positive, practical, common-sense alternative, I really believe we can shock them. Also, they don't have a strong candidate. Their candidates are just classic machine politician Democrats. They don't have anyone who I think can at all persuade people that they're going to bring the kind of changes California needs.
Steve, speaking of well-funded, where can people go to help? Where can people go to contribute?
Thank you. Well, you know it, Larry. Something in the tip jar, as you always put it, would be so helpful. SteveHiltonforGovernor.com. SteveHiltonforGovernor.com. Every little helps, because we got the unions against us, this big Democrat corrupt machine. Please help us beat them.
Steve, as always, thank you very much for coming on. Godspeed.
Great to see you, Larry. Thank you.
You too.